It's time for NCW Life News on the NCW Life channel. The latest from the Wenatchee Valley and North Central Washington with Steve Hare, Grant Olson, and sports with Eric Granstrom.
Good evening and welcome to NCW Life News. I'm Grant Olson. Before we get to today's top stories, let's take a quick look at your weather forecast. And we are seeing just a few clouds out there today, and then we will see plenty of sunshine as we move through the week. Tonight's low about 66 degrees and a cool down for Thursday and Friday with highs then in the lower to mid 80s. We'll have much more in your weather forecast coming up a little bit later on in our broadcast. But now a few of the stories we're following for you tonight. Congressman Dan Newhouse sponsors legislation that could impact rural regions after a natural disaster. Crews reach 100% containment on the Canyon Creek fire. Smoke fills the valley from surrounding wildfires, and police arrest a man who fled Chelan after an alleged assault. Later on, we'll have sports, your weather forecast, and our feature story today. But first, we begin tonight. Rural areas would be on equal footing with large populated areas when it comes to future federal disaster aid. Congressman Dan Newhouse has co-sponsored legislation that directs FEMA to recognize the economic stress that can be placed on rural regions following a natural disaster such as a wildfire.
We were able to get some report language in this year's Homeland Security Appropriations Act. In particularly what it says and it relates to is that in rural areas such as the state of Washington, many of our communities face the threat of catastrophic fires as we've seen over the last several years. And FEMA's public assistance program should treat rural communities fairly when administering disaster relief. Now, the report language included in this legislation will ensure that FEMA addresses the current imbalance in public assistance administered to states and localities, something that we've struggled with over the last couple of years in trying to get equal treatment because our area is rural and FEMA's rules favor those areas that have much more dense population.
So if this legislation had been in place after, let's say, the Carlton Complex fire, things would have been different.
I think so. I think we would have had a much easier time getting the relief we did and probably had been able to get additional relief to many of the communities and the people that need it.
FEMA's Public Assistance Program provides assistance for emergency work and the repair or replacement of disaster-damaged facilities. Fire crews have been demobilizing as the Canyon Creek fire was declared 100% contained this morning. The fire started Saturday and spread to almost 1,200 acres of timber and brush about a mile south of Carlton in Okanogan County. The fire claimed one unoccupied residence, but no other structures were damaged and no injuries were reported. Highway 153 between Pateros and Twisp has reopened in both directions without restrictions. Fire managers say there will be smoke visible over the next few days as some vegetation within the fire perimeter are burned off. Well, you've probably noticed the hazy shroud of smoke we've experienced in the Wenatchee Valley over the past couple of days. The cause is from a rash of wildfires burning to the north of us. Wildfires are spreading rapidly across the Canadian province of British Columbia, so far eluding firefighters and forcing some 40,000 people from their homes. And with no rain in the forecast until Thursday, Canadian officials fear the fires currently raging will get worse. In addition to more than 3,000 fire personnel now fighting these fires, authorities have also requested the help of the military and even Australia. Chelan County Sheriff's Department reports a wanted fugitive who fled the area with his 2 young children after a fight at Chelan's Slide Waters Park was arrested in Phoenix, Arizona yesterday. Sheriff Brian Burnett reports in a news release that Sergio Valdez was apprehended along with his 6-month and 18-month-old children. He says arrangements were being made to return Valdez to Chelan County, where he faces felony charges of custodial interference and other crimes. Valdez was also awaiting sentencing in Douglas County for crimes he was convicted of prior to fleeing to Arizona. Coming up, we'll hear from the Eastmont School Superintendent on new classroom configurations for the district. Plans move forward to develop a mental health crisis care unit in Wenatchee, and we'll talk elections and the candidates on the ticket for the primary this August. I'm Grant Olson, and you're watching NCW Life News.
Gather friends and family and support Youth United with Color Rush. This untimed 5K event is for all ages on Sunday, August 20th. Sign up today at colorwenatchee.com.
After almost a year of planning, the Eastmont School Board has approved new class configurations for its 9 campuses. The preferred option C, adopted at Monday night's board meeting, will be put into action over the next 5 years. The new plan will have Cascade, Grant, Kenroy, Lee, Rock Island, and Clovis elementary schools going to kindergarten through 6th grade. Sterling Middle School would also have K through 6th grade, as well as 7th, 8th, and 9th grade classes. Eastmont Junior High School would go to 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, with the high school carrying 10th through 12th grade classes. Eastmont Superintendent Garn Christensen says the configuration decision was based on several factors.
The process began several years ago. Districts in Washington have the opportunity to do what's called a facility study and survey, and that is a state-funded grant that obligates a district to use a team of architects and engineers who are familiar with school construction, familiar with building schools and buildings and campus facilities. They come into your district. Not only do they rank your different schools, but they look at enrollment patterns, they look at population trends, and they conclude with some recommendations for a school board as far as, hey, your facilities are adequate, they're excellent, or they're in poor repair, or you've got enrollment decline or enrollment growth. And Eastmont concluded that a few years ago, and one of the outcomes was that over the next 10 years, you really need to add capacity for at least 500 new students. We've been growing right around 2% for over 20 years each year, and we'll be right at about 6,000 students this year. So the district tasked me to put together a study group that began meeting fall of 2016, and it was comprised of school administrators that manage these campuses, some community agency people who are involved with commercial facilities, school facilities, construction of the type that school districts do. We surveyed our parents, we surveyed our community, and then our board held 4 hearings on those 4 configurations. The board did come to a decision on one of those recommendations and directed me to begin implementation.
The configuration will also require the construction of over 20 additional classrooms at current schools and cafeterias at Cascade, Kenroy, Lee, and Rock Island. He says work will begin on drafting a timeline for the changes in the fall. He says funding for these additions will come from the $10 million K-3 class size reduction grant and the capital levy passed by voters last fall. Well, plans appear to be moving forward to develop a mental health crisis care unit in Wenatchee. The behavioral health organization serving Chelan, Douglas, and Grant counties is developing the facility at the former Parkside Convalescent Center. BHO board member Chelan County Commissioner Doug England explains.
We did receive the bids on Parkside. We have about $4 million to work with, and those bids came in apparently in nice shape. We're going to go over them at noon at the BHO and kind of look to see exactly which ones were compliant with the requirements of the bid. But if they hold up, it would give us an opportunity to move forward very quickly to provide those mental health beds that the communities needed so badly.
The Parkside project has been in the works for several years. It is designed to reduce the number of people who suffer from behavioral health issues who currently wind up in jail or hospital emergency rooms. Well, it'll be an interesting primary election this August as 6 candidates are in the race for 2 positions on the Lake Chelan Community Hospital Board of Commissioners. The goal of the election is to narrow down candidates to just 2 for the general election. For position 1, incumbent Mary Signorelli is running for re-election against candidates Stan Morse and Jeremy Jach. For position 5, Phyllis Gleesman is running for re-election against challengers Kathy Jo Porter and Jerry Eisenhart. A number of candidates also filed for position 6 at the Chelan City Council, including incumbent Skip Morehouse, challenged by locals Andrew Baker and Tim Hollingworth. Looking to NEAT, 2 city council seats are up for grabs this fall. Richard Crump and Norman Stenberg are vying for the position 1 seat currently held by Robert Anderson. Crump is a disabled electrical engineer, and Stenberg is the owner of a towing service and is a current member of the NEAT Planning Commission and a former Rock Island police officer. The top 2 vote-getters will advance to the November election. The position 2 seat is being contested by 2 candidates who will automatically advance to the general election. Ballots for the primary election must be dropped in a mailbox by 8 p.m. on August 1st or postmarked by August 1st. You're watching NCW Life News. Coming up next, Eric Granstrom has your sports update, followed by our feature story today. That and much more still to come on NCW Life News. Stay with us.
Is your vehicle in need of a quick oil change or tune-up before hitting the road this summer? Stop by Quick Lube and Tune, the home of the good guys at 610 South Wenatchee Avenue.
And now it's a sports update on the NCW Life channel.
And a good Wednesday evening. The South beat the North 5-2 in the West Coast League All-Star game last night at Yakima County Stadium. Wenatchee's Evan Johnson led the North at the plate, going 2 for 3 with a double and in the first and an RBI single in the third. Apple Sox Dugan Shire started in center field, hit leadoff. He went 0 for 4 with 1 of 15 strikeouts for the North in the game at the plate. Colin Mayer came onto the mound in relief in the fourth, quickly surrendering a leadoff homer to Cowlitz's Delvin Granberg. Mayer ended his inning allowing 2 runs on 2 hits. Granberg was the hitting star of the night for the South, going 2 for 3 with 3 ribbies and 2 runs. The visiting Highline Bears defeated the Wenatchee Apple Sox during Hawaiian night last night by a final of 8-5. Highline rocked Wenatchee reliever Easton Henke for 4 runs on 5 hits and an inning and a third to erase a 5-1 deficit. Jacob Pretter went 2 for 5 at the plate with a bases clearing triple to score 3 in the 6th. Jalen Garcia led off the 4th with a solo home run, his 2nd of the season. Fans were drawn throughout the game for a chance to do coconut bowling afterwards to win a trip to Hawaii. The object was to get the coconut closest to home plate from the pitcher's mound.
You got 1 foot on that rubber. Here we go! Oh, look at that. Okay, all right. Oh, not bad. Oh, I think that's the closest. The winner of Hawaiian Night, thanks to Journey Travel and Tours, the Wenatchee Apple Sox and Sunny FM, the greatest hits of all time, is Dustin Heckenmiller. Nice job, buddy. You're going to Hawaii, the Big Island.
Congratulations, Dustin Hackenmiller. The Apple Sox, meanwhile, get back to West Coast League play tonight when they travel to Yakima to take on the Pippins in the first of 3 games at Yakima County Stadium. First pitch tonight at 7:05. Ben Gamble had a 2-run homer, and James Paxton pitched 7 solid innings today as the Mariners beat Houston 4-1. Paxton worked 7 innings, allowing 1 run on 6 hits and 7 strikeouts to improve it to 9-3. Manager Scott Service started his post-game comments with a performance of his pitcher.
It was outstanding today. It's exactly what the doctor ordered. He was on top of his game, and really the first time you started to see a little bit of his cutter come into play here last outing, and today it came into play big time. He threw some really good ones down, back foot to the right-handed hitters, and was something to get them off of it, the fastball and stuff. So again, a really good road trip by our ball club. We talked about some things coming out of the break, where we needed to get to and how we were going to get there, and then the guys have responded. Our offense has been pretty consistent. The pitching, though, is in this series was big. Bullpen, again, continues to do the job. Got a little dicey there in the 8th, but the guys have been stretched. We've asked a lot of them, just pitching as many days as they have. But they all want the ball. They all want to be part of it, and we're getting it done right now.
Mariners return home to take on the Yankees tomorrow. It is football season here in the Wenatchee Valley. Panther football camp continues. Their head coach for the Wenatchee Panthers, Scott Devereaux, talked about this being a tradition.
This is the 20th year of our Wenatchee football team camp. We have 15 schools and about 800 athletes here participating until Thursday morning. We have about 50 parents working in the kitchen. Some are in there right now prepping for dinner. And a cleanup crew, and the assistant coaches do a lot of picking up garbage and things like that. So You know, 50 parents a night for 4 dinners is huge, awesome, and they do a great job for us. A lot of these coaches have been here since the very first camp, so for a lot of us coaches, it's kind of a reunion. You know, you get to see a guy once or twice a year and tell football stories until late at night. And the players that come here, they get some bonding time. I see a lot of the coaches and teams doing some good team building things in the evenings. And even for some of them, this is their vacation. So if you notice, there's campers at the parking lot. And when the camp is over, some of the parents and the kids, they go stay at the state parks and they go hang out the river and they go to Chelan, and this is a vacation for them.
Vacation for the parents, definitely not for the players. The camp winds up tomorrow. That's a look at sports news. I'm Eric Grandstrom on the NCW Life Channel. Grant, back to you.
Thank you, Eric. Well, there's word out of Olympia that a final vote is near on a state capital budget, which would bring to close the longest legislative session in history. 12th District House members Kerry Condata and Mike Steele say it'll be a challenge to get everything done before Thursday's scheduled deadline.
This will be very incremental in the way we approach this process. So there'll be a lot of waiting occurring on Thursday, because what will happen is we'll pass one piece of legislation that's dependent upon the negotiation. We'll make sure it goes to the governor's desk. He signs it before we pass another piece of legislation dependent on passing of the capital budget. So it's all very timed. It will all be because we do not want the governor vetoing anything that we worked on as far as negotiation is concerned. So it will be very, very choreographed.
And this veto that he did on the tax bill has totally ruined any trust we have with the governor's office or with the other side. We negotiated that in good faith. That budget may not have passed without that piece in. That piece was put in to get the final votes. That manufacturing tax reduction was a big part of this. And to have that removed after the fact has broken the trust lines completely. So as Mike said, we're going to literally have to pass it to his desk, have him sign it, do another one. The last vote will be the bond vote. And that's the one we have leverage on because it requires 60 votes. The Democrats cannot pass that one unanimously. We have to help them. That'll be the last one, and those signatures better be on the capital budget and the Hearst decision before it happens. So a big drama in Olympia.
It's reported that lawmakers were called back to Olympia for a possible vote later today. We'll be back in just a moment with a recap of today's stories and your weather forecast for North Central Washington. For all the latest news in North Central Washington, go to ncwlife.com or find us on Facebook. Got a news tip? Email us at news@ncwlife.com or call 888-2020. Welcome back, and now for a recap of our top stories. Rural areas would be on equal footing with large populated areas when it comes to future federal disaster aid. Congressman Dan Newhouse has co-sponsored legislation that directs FEMA to recognize the economic stress that can be placed on rural regions following a natural disaster such as a major wildfire.
We were able to get some report language in this year's Homeland Security Appropriations Act. And particularly what it says and it relates to is that in rural areas such as the state of Washington, many of our communities face the threat of catastrophic fires as we've seen over the last several years. And FEMA's public assistance program should treat rural communities fairly when administrating disaster relief. Now, the report language included in this legislation will ensure that FEMA addresses the current imbalance in public assistance administered to states and localities, something that we've struggled with over the last couple of years in trying to get equal treatment because our area is rural and FEMA's rules favor those areas that have much more dense population.
So if this legislation had been in place after, let's say, the Carlton complex fire, things would have been different.
I think so. I think we would have had a much easier time getting the relief we did and probably had been able to get additional relief to many of the communities and the people that need it.
FEMA's Public Assistance Program provides assistance for emergency work and the repair or replacement of disaster-damaged facilities. Fire crews have begun demobilizing as the Canyon Creek fire was declared 100% contained this morning. The fire started Saturday and spread to almost 1,200 acres of timber and brush That was about a mile south of Carlton in Okanagan County. The fire claimed one unoccupied residence, but no other structures were damaged and no injuries were reported. Highway 153 between Pateros and Twisp has reopened in both directions without restrictions. Fire managers say there will be smoke visible over the next few days as some vegetation within the fire perimeter are burned off. Well, from the NCW Life Pardon Our Smoke file, the hazy shroud we experienced in the Wenatchee Valley area is from a rash of wildfires burning to the north of us in British Columbia. Wildfires are spreading rapidly across the Canadian province, so far eluding firefighters and forcing some 40,000 people from their homes. And with no rain in the forecast until Thursday, Canadian officials fear the fires currently raging will get worse. In addition to more than 3,000 fire personnel now fighting these fires, authorities have also requested the help of the military and even Australia. Chelan County Sheriff's Department reports a wanted fugitive who fled the area with his 2 young children after a fight at Chelan Slidewaters Park was arrested in Phoenix, Arizona yesterday. Sheriff Brian Burnett reports in a news release that Sergio Valdez was apprehended along with his 6-month-old and 18-month-old children. He says arrangements were being made to return Valdez to Chelan County, where he faces felony charges of custodial interference and other crimes. Valdez was also awaiting sentencing in Douglas County for crimes he was convicted of prior to fleeing to Arizona. And now, your weather forecast for north central Washington. But before we get to that, let's take a beautiful look at our friends to the north in the North Valley up in Leavenworth. This is looking down from our Tumwater Canyon camera, and you can see just a few clouds out there today, but really not a whole lot going on out there, just sunshine and warmer temperatures. We will see some changes, though, as an area of low pressure will move inland tomorrow with a cold front pushing through during the day tomorrow. This will provide about a 5 to 10 degrees of cooling compared to today. You can see just off the coast of Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia, a fetch of moisture coming down from Alaska, digging in. That's called a trough, and that will continue to move our way. But as it does move in tomorrow, winds will be on the increase, especially tomorrow afternoon, and will become just downright windy by evening time tomorrow. And then Friday through Wednesday, quiet weather returns to the area. It will also be a little bit cooler than normal day as that weak frontal system moves through, but otherwise a warm up, and it's coming this weekend, as you can see. But first tomorrow, only 81 for our high temperature. That's actually 7 degrees below where we should be for this time of year. Lots of sunshine throughout our forecast. A bit warmer on Friday with 86 expected. Also expect a possible red flag warning to be put into place tomorrow. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow during our newscast. Into the weekend then, it looks nice. Sunshine, 92 Saturday, 94 on Sunday. 69 the low Saturday, 68 on Sunday, and then a bit cooler as we kick off our next work week. Monday, sunny and 90, and on Tuesday, we will see sunshine once again with a high temperature of around 89 degrees. A few clouds Tuesday night with low temperatures at 66. And now we'll close out our newscast with our video of the day. Wow, that is impressive. If you have a video of the day you'd like to see on NCW Life News, message us on our Facebook page at the NCW Life channel. And that's going to do it for our newscast tonight. For more on these stories and other news from around north central Washington, you can find us on Facebook or our website at ncwlife.com. And remember, if you see news happening or have video you'd like us to use, we'd love to hear from you. You can send us an email at news@ncwlife.com or give us a call at 888-NCWL. I'm Grant Olson. Thanks for joining us and have a great night.
This has been NCW Life News on the NCW Life channel. For more news, log on to ncwlife.com, like us on Facebook, and follow NCW Life channel on Twitter. Are you wanting high-speed internet but don't have access to PUD fiber? Try Sky-Fi high-speed wireless internet from LocalTel. Call 888-8888 today.